What if I told you that the moment a woman says, I was harassed, the world doesn't ask what happened to her? It asks what she did wrong. What was she wearing? Why was she out so late? Why didn't she resist harder? Why didn't she leave earlier? And perhaps the most dangerous question of all, why didn't she stay silent? Hello and welcome back to the Personal Lens. This is Jayanti, and today we are talking about victim blaming. Because somewhere deeply embedded in the way our society functions is a disturbing assumption that harassment is not simply an act of violence, but a consequence, a reaction provoked, invited, or failed to be prevented by the woman herself. Today we are not just questioning that assumption, we are dismantling it. So let us first dissect the anatomy of victim blaming. Victim blaming is not just a reaction, it is a system of thought. It is the quiet, normalized shift of responsibility from the perpetrator to the victim. At its core, it functions through a simple but insidious logic. If she had behaved differently, this wouldn't have happened. This logic is alluring because it creates an illusion of control. If harassment can be avoided by correct behavior, then society doesn't have to confront the uncomfortable truth that violence against women is systemic, pervasive, and rooted in power. But here's the problem. This logic is not only flawed, but it is empirically false. Harassment occurs across clothing choices, age groups, professions, and spaces. Women in burqas, school uniforms, corporate suits, and saris have all reported harassment. Children, elderly women, and even those in strictly controlled environments are not spared. So, if it's not about what women do, what is it about? Let us now come to moral policing, which is nothing but control disguised as protection. Moral policing presents itself as concern. It tells women, dress modestly for your safety. Don't go out alone, don't drink, don't attract attention. But look closer and you'll notice something unsettling. These rules are never imposed on men. Men are not told don't harass. They are not told control your impulses. They are not taught that desire does not equal entitlement. Instead, the burden of prevention is placed entirely on women. This is not protection, it is control. It is a system that disciplines women's mobility, expression, and autonomy under the guise of safety while leaving the root cause of violence untouched. And perhaps more dangerously, it reframes harassment as a failure of femininity rather than a crime of masculinity. Moving on now to the myth of provocation. One of the most persistent myths is that women provoke harassment. Let's sit with that for a moment. Provocation implies that male desire is uncontrollable, that men are driven by instinct rather than choice. It reduces men to being incapable of restraint while simultaneously holding women responsible for managing that supposed lack of control. But this myth collapses under scrutiny. If harassment were truly about attraction, it would be selective. It would correlate with beauty standards, flirtation, or explicit signals. But it doesn't. Harassment is about power. It is about asserting dominance, testing boundaries, and reinforcing a hierarchy where women are reminded of their vulnerability. When a man catcalls a woman on the street, he is not expressing admiration. He is asserting his presence. He is saying, I can intrude upon your space, your body, your peace, and you cannot stop me. And victim blaming doesn't just punish women, it silences them because when every disclosure is met with scrutiny, doubt, or blame, speaking up becomes a risk. Women begin to calculate. Will I be believed? Will I be judged? Will it be easier to stay quiet? And often silence becomes the safer option. But this silence is not passive. It is produced. It is enforced. It benefits perpetrators who operate in a system where accountability is rare. It benefits society which avoids confronting uncomfortable truths. And it sustains a cycle where harassment continues unchallenged and normalized. In this sense, victim blaming is not just a reaction, it is a mechanism of exploitation. It ensures that the cost of speaking out is higher than the cost of perpetrating harm. What cannot be overlooked here is that the role of male entitlement. So, at the heart of this issue lies something deeper. The belief that women's bodies, time, and attention are accessible, that rejection is an insult, that persistence is romantic, that boundaries are negotiable. This entitlement is not innate, it is cultivated. It is reinforced through media that glorifies pursuit without consent, through socialization that rewards dominance and discourages emotional accountability. through peer cultures where harassment is trivialized as humor or boys being boys. And crucially, it is sustained by a system that rarely holds men accountable. When consequences are absent, entitlement thrives. Let's think about everyday experiences. A woman adjusts her route home to avoid a particular street. She shares her live location with a friend. She carries keys between her fingers. She avoids eye contact. She calculates risk in spaces that should feel ordinary. Now think about the questions she faces if something happens. Why were you there? Why didn't you leave? Why didn't you scream? Notice how none of these questions are directed at the person who caused the harm. This is not accidental, it is structural. So why not try busting the myth and look into where responsibility actually lies? Let's be absolutely clear. Harassment is not caused by women's behavior. It is caused by perpetrators' choices. Responsibility lies entirely with the individual who commits the act and with the systems that enable it. Shifting blame onto the woman does not prevent harassment. It only obscures its causes. And more importantly, it allows society to avoid accountability. Because if women are responsible for preventing harm, then men are absolved from causing it. And it is time. In fact, high time for reclaiming the narrative. But challenging victim blaming requires more than awareness. It requires a shift in perspective. It means asking different questions, difficult questions. Not what was she wearing, but why did he feel entitled? Not why was she there, but why is that space unsafe? Not why didn't she resist, but why did he act? It also means creating environments where women can speak without fear, where their experiences are validated, not interrogated. Because the truth is, the problem is not women's behavior. The problem is a culture that normalizes violation and punishes resistance. So the next time you hear a story of harassment, pay attention not just to what happened, but to the questions that follow. Because those questions reveal something far more disturbing than the act itself. They reveal a society that is less interested in justice and more invested in preserving comfort. A society that would rather teach women how to survive violence than teach men not to commit it. Maybe the most dangerous thing about victim blame is not the blame itself, but what it protects. Because every time society asks a woman what she was wearing instead of asking a man why he violated someone, it sends a message that women must constantly earn safety, while men are rarely taught accountability. And that is the real scandal. Harassment does not thrive because women are careless. It thrives because too many people are more comfortable policing women than confronting male entitlement. The truth is simple. Even if society keeps trying to complicate it, women are not responsible for managing men's behavior. Men are responsible for their own actions, and until we stop teaching women how not to get harassed and start teaching men not to harass, we are not addressing the problem. We are protecting it. And here's the truth. We can no longer ignore. Women are not blamed for their harassment because they are responsible. They are blamed because holding them responsible is easier than holding men accountable. Because accountability will demand change, and change is uncomfortable. But silence is far more dangerous. Thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. This has been The Personal Lens, where the personal is never just personal and silence is never neutral. If this episode made you uncomfortable, good. Because some truths are supposed to. Because change does not begin when society feels comfortable. It begins when excuses stop working. Do leave your thoughts and comments in the email provided in the description. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and share The Personal Lens. And until next time, question what you've been taught. Unlearn what protects injustice, and remember, empathy without accountability changes nothing. Do keep looking through The Personal Lens.